Welcome to the Money is Emotional podcast with Christine Luken, the financial dignity coach. In this podcast, we help you recover a positive and peaceful relationship with your personal finances. We do this by bringing together wise money management with emotional intelligence. Join us for this journey where we navigate our relationship with money as Christine Luken draws from years of experience and guest experts to help you get to the root of your money issues.
Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Money is Emotional podcast. I am your host, Christine Luken. Today's episode is Overcoming Money Shame. I am rereading one of my favorite books about emotion, Atlas of the Heart. In it, Brene Brown focuses on the language that we use to describe our emotional experiences. A few of these emotions are particularly relevant to money. In today's episode, I want to discuss shame, guilt, perfectionism, and self-compassion, and how these apply particularly to our finances. So the section of the book I'm focusing on for this particular podcast episode is called The Places We Go When We Fall Short. And because we are human, there will be times when we fall short, especially when it comes to managing money. I want to first start by differentiating between guilt and shame. We often lump these two together, but there is a distinct flavor to each of these emotions when we fall short. Let's look at an example of this and how it might apply to your money. So let's say that you overdraw your checking account and your house payment bounces. Yikes. If you experience the emotion of guilt, you say, "Oh crap, I haven't checked my bank balances in 3 weeks. I forgot to make sure if there was enough money in my checking account. I need to call the mortgage company and explain what happened. And I need to get back to my habit of spending time weekly checking in on my finances." If you experience shame, you say, "Oh shit, I can't afford another overdraft fee. My parents were right. I am so irresponsible with money. How can I be so stupid?" Guilt focuses on the behavior. It acknowledges the mistake, and it can drive positive change. Guilt basically says, "I did a bad thing. Let me do better." Shame doesn't focus on the behavior. It focuses on you as the person. Shame makes the mistake mean something about who you are, and it does not drive positive change. Shame basically says, "I did a bad thing, and therefore I'm a bad person." You're basically taking that feeling and using it against yourself. It's okay to feel guilt. It's a barometer to let us know that we've fallen short of our principles and our ideals, right? Like, this is the behavior we want to have, and we've fallen short. So that feeling of guilt passing through you is telling you, "Oh no, I made a mistake. I need to change course." Shame, on the other hand, makes you feel bad about yourself, right? So when you start to have that feeling that you haven't measured up, you don't say, "I did a bad thing and I need to change my behavior." You say, "I did a bad thing. This confirms that I'm a bad person." So guilt actually does have some redeeming qualities because it can cause you to change your behavior for the better. But shame does not have any redeeming qualities. The problem is that we can get into this cycle, which I call the money shame cycle. And it can be very hard to break out of it. So you make a money mistake and you feel ashamed and you define yourself by the mistake. The problem with shame is that it makes you want to hide. And when you hide, you don't get the help that you need. You don't get the information. You don't get the assistance needed to improve and do better. This leads to more mistakes, which only confirms that you are indeed terrible with money, right? It becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. Whereas if you are not in the money shame cycle and you experience that little hit of guilt, when it happens, you recognize that you've made a mistake, and you then, rather than hide, you seek the answers that you need, whether that's going online and educating yourself on somebody's website, listening to a podcast like this, reaching out to a financial professional for help, whatever the case may be. You have sought the information, you have sought the help so that you don't repeat the mistake. So the problem with feeling shame is that it makes you feel so bad about yourself that you don't seek the information and the assistance that you need. So how do we break this money shame cycle, right? Like, that's really what we want to know, because we don't want to stay in this place of feeling ashamed about our money mistakes, whether they're big or small. You know, the example that I gave, bouncing your house payment, I'd say that's probably a medium mistake, right? It's not like you lost $5 at the county fair that fell out of your wallet, but it hurts. However, you didn't lose the family fortune, right? And I do see people who have had some pretty serious financial missteps, people who have been scammed out of money, people who have had gambling addictions and lost a great deal of money. And these are the people that need help the most, right? So it doesn't matter what the mistake is, big or small. We need to break this cycle. So Brene Brown says the antidote to shame is empathy. And I wholeheartedly agree with this. Discussing our financial struggles with an empathetic friend, family member, or financial professional can help us break free from the grip of shame. Shame basically isolates us from community. So even though it may feel counterintuitive when we feel shame, because we don't want anybody to know what we've done, we actually need to do that thing that we fear, and that is to reach out to someone. Brene says it this way in her book on page 136. The less we talk about it, the more control it has over us. Shame hates being spoken. And that's exactly what we need to do in order to get shame to leave the room, is to talk about it. This brings up a great metaphor for me, because I like to say that money is like sex. No one teaches us anything about it. We're not supposed to talk about it. And yet, we're supposed to be great at it. And there is no wonder that we have so much shame around both sex and money, right? So when we have this atmosphere of we're not supposed to talk about it, that is counterproductive for us making progress. As the saying goes, your secrets make you sick. Shame thrives in darkness and secrecy. So empathy is the cure for money shame. Who in your life can you open up to and receive empathy for your financial mistakes? Now listen, just because someone is good with money or has a professional designation behind their name, this doesn't necessarily make them a safe person to confide in. Unfortunately, I've heard stories from quite a few women and also some men about being shamed for their mistakes by a financial professional, whether it was an advisor, a tax professional, or a banker. This is so disheartening for me to hear because I know that shaming someone does not help them improve their financial situation. It doesn't help them change their behavior. And I know I've been on the receiving side of being shamed by a financial professional when I was going through a tough time in my business. And it did not feel good. It made me want to hide, and I actually fired this person and hired someone else. So, I mean, was there a legitimate mistake or a legitimate area of improvement that this person was calling attention to? Certainly. But the way that they called attention to it honestly made me feel like crap. And it made me feel ashamed. And it didn't make me want to do better. It made me want to get rid of that person and go find someone else who was much more empathetic. So, whether your shame is self-imposed or put there by others, it is time to brush the shame off of you, right? And I hate that phrase, shame on you, because that is very condescending and it doesn't make people change. And so I will literally tell people to physically brush off your shame, right? Like if you can see me on the video, I'm like brushing my arms off. So literally say to yourself, shame off me, right? We got to drop the shame. Because when we drop the shame, we can receive empathy along with the knowledge and assistance that we need to improve our money situation.
Dare to enter the Wealthy Woman Book Club, where answers exist to forbidden questions, where women of all ages and income secretly gather, where knowledge is shared, where possibilities are explored, where women claim their power. Dare to stay a spell in the Wealthy Woman Book Club. In this place, we lift each other up. In this place, we start dreaming again. In this place, we see financial miracles. In this place, we grow through the glory and the failure. In this place, we step into a new identity. Dare to champion the Wealthy Woman Book Club. We're creating a future where women are financially empowered across the globe. We're creating a future where our daughters stand on equal financial footing with our sons. We're creating a future where we purchase with our principles rather than price tags. We're creating a future where we use the power of money for the benefit of people and the planet. Welcome to the Wealthy Woman Book Club. Dare to come in, woman. Come in. Join us at wealthywomanbookclub.com.
So many of you know my backstory of how I crashed and burned financially in my 20s. If you want to hear the complete story of that, or you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go back to the very first episode of Money is Emotional, where I talk about how my heart hijacked my wallet. Long story short, I messed up my finances pretty darn good in my 20s. And when I got to the point of being sick and tired of my situation, of getting to my emotional and financial rock bottom, I had to reach out for help. I wanted to leave a bad relationship, and the only way I was going to be able to do that is if I got help from my parents. Now, I did not want to ask for help. And in fact, I stayed in this situation for several months longer than I wanted to, because it took me that long to get up my courage to overcome those feelings of money shame and get help. Fortunately, when I got to that point and I reached out and talked to my dad about it, he did not shame me. Now, he could have. He legitimately could have. He could have said, I told you that guy was no good for you. How could you have done this with your money? Like, you're an accountant. How could you be in collections? How is it that you have $0 in your bank account to leave this guy and go get a new apartment? He could have said all of those things, but he didn't. And here's the reason why. Because, first of all, my dad's just an awesome, big-hearted person, but I think he instinctively knew that that would not help the situation, that would cause me to withdraw and not get the help that I needed. So there was no condemnation from him. Now, he also did not shield me from the consequences of my behavior. Now, he did say, well, this is quite a mess you've gotten yourself into, and, I'm not just going to pay off all this debt for you or lend you money or just give you money to get a new apartment. What I will do is offer you a free place to stay for several months, and I will help you put a plan to get back out on your feet. And that is exactly what I needed. I needed someone who would meet me where I was without judgment. I didn't need him to sugarcoat the facts of what had happened or my situation. But he said, okay, let's look at this. What's going on? Let's get our arms around it and let me help you make a plan. So you need somebody like this to help you. Or to at least, reach out and tell somebody like, hey, I've gotten myself into this mess with this particular situation. Sometimes we just need to tell somebody, right? And then we can figure out what our next steps are. So the person that you confide in doesn't necessarily have to be a financial expert. Thankfully, my dad is very smart with money, and he gave me a lot of good advice, even though he's not a financial professional. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an advisor. It just needs to be someone who is empathetic and who can point you in the right direction. Now, what I found very interesting in Brene Brown's book is that this discussion of shame and empathy was also in the same section about perfectionism. Brene says that shame is the birthplace of perfectionism. I am a mostly recovered perfectionist, and I fully admit that. It's something that I've struggled with in the past, and perfectionism is related to people pleasing and worrying about what other people think about you. Perfectionism is not striving to do our best. Perfectionism is not the pursuit of excellence. Perfectionism is a performance for the approval of others. So perfectionism tells us that our mistakes and our failures are personal defects. That's how Brene puts it in Atlas of the Heart. So I want to just say that again. Perfectionism tells us that our mistakes and our failures are personal defects. Perfectionism isn't about doing things with excellence. It's characterized by a fear of mistakes and failures. And this is counterproductive because most of us learn how to do things by making mistakes and course correcting. If you think about a baby learning to walk, the baby doesn't beat himself or herself up because he or she falls all the time. That's part of learning to walk, right? We understand this. Julia Child did not learn how to be an amazing chef by reading some cookbooks. She learned how to do it, yes, by studying and getting knowledge from other people, but a lot of it was trial and error. Yes, there are things that you can learn from a book, a course, or a podcast. However, there are other things that you can only learn and skills that can only be refined by our own lived experience. So here's a great example. 2 months ago, I started a workout program called Bodi. It's a hybrid of yoga and primal movement. Elise is the trainer who is teaching the program. I picked it because she's 48 years old and I'm 3 years older than that. And so I thought, okay, this is great because it's low impact, it's body weight. Let me tell you, this has been one of the most challenging and transformational workouts I have ever done in my entire life. And I have been a member of Beachbody for, I want to say probably a decade. It's 6 weeks of workouts with a warm-up week. Okay, so the warm-up week teaches you the proper form of all the moves. You guys, I had to go through 3 rounds of the warm-up week. 3 rounds. I did the warm-up week for 3 weeks. I had to do that in order to feel proficient enough with the moves to even start week 1 of the program. I literally had to stop the workout, pause it, rewind it, sit on the floor and watch what the instructor was doing several times before I could attempt some of these moves. Some of them I couldn't even do the modified version of. I was like, my body doesn't work that way. Like, whoa, my brain is frizzing out here. What are you doing? So I've actually been doing 3 rounds of each week's workout before moving on to the following week. So I'm almost 3 rounds in and I am on round 2 of week 3. So I'm not even halfway through yet. But the results that I am seeing on the scale and how my clothes fit speak for themselves. I have no doubt that by the time I am finished with Bodi Lava, I will be in the best shape of my life, and I am 51 years old. However, if I were still clinging to my perfectionistic tendencies, I would have quit probably 2 or 3 days in to the warm-up week. I would have said, this is too hard. My body doesn't bend that way. I keep falling over. This isn't for me. But the truth of the matter is that because I am learning by trying the moves, by failing, by falling over, by trying again, I am continuously improving and eventually mastering the moves. Why would we expect money to be any different? Right? Now, I said before, money and sex. Everybody expects us to be good at these things, but nobody teaches us about them, and we're not supposed to talk about them or ask any questions. We have to try things. We have to ask. We are going to fail. That is a part of life. And look, just because you reach a certain level of financial results or wealth doesn't mean that you've made it and you're never going to make a mistake. It's been 25 years since I hit financial rock bottom. I am still learning things. I am still growing because we keep moving to new levels. And could shame enter into the equation for me at this level? It could if I allowed it to, but I understand and have compassion on myself that, I'm not always going to do things perfectly, and I'm not going to have all the answers, even as someone who does this for a living. So if you are expecting yourself to be perfect, please stop that. Because perfectionism is not about self-improvement. Perfectionism is about trying to win approval. And that is a losing game because you cannot control other people's judgments and perceptions about you. My friend Derek Kinney, who was a guest on this podcast for episode 56, says that failure contains the seeds of your future successes. However, if you're entrenched in perfectionism, it won't even allow you to look at those failures objectively to pull out those lessons. So expecting yourself to behave perfectly with money is a recipe for shame. And we don't want that. Self-compassion is what moves you from money shame to financial dignity. Yes, it is amazing to receive empathy from somebody else. But we also have to have empathy and compassion for ourselves. And self-compassion means being gentle with yourself when you fall short. This is not about making excuses for your mistakes. However, you don't criticize and condemn yourself for your shortcomings. Self-compassion means that you understand you're human. You're a work in progress. It allows you to look at your mistakes and extract the lessons. Self-compassion also allows you to reach out to people who can provide empathy and guidance, right? If you're hard on yourself, if you don't allow yourself compassion, you're basically punishing yourself. And improvement doesn't come from that. I talk a lot about financial dignity. So what is the definition of dignity? What does it mean? Dignity is the state of feeling worthy of honor or respect. And so what we're really talking about is self-respect. We know what money shame feels like. What does financial dignity feel like? It's that state where you feel positive and peaceful about your money because you're making progress and you're treating it with respect. It doesn't mean that you behave perfectly with money because none of us do, right? It also doesn't mean that you've arrived. I remember very distinctly the moment when I felt financial dignity. I was driving to work one day. It was about a year after I hit rock bottom. And the thought struck me, I'm not worried about money. I was feeling positive and peaceful about my money. I had not paid off all my debt yet. My credit score had not fully recovered. However, I was working my plan I was seeing progress, and I knew that I was on the right track. And most importantly, I was respecting my money. And in that moment, I knew, okay, I've come over to the other side, right? I've dropped that money shame, and now I can focus on the future, right? Because money shame keeps us stuck in the past, and we can't change what's happened. And let me tell you, I had plenty of stuff in my past to be ashamed of, for sure. I had ruined my credit score. I was in collections. I had cashed in stock that my dad had bought me for my 21st birthday, and I used that money to bail my now ex-fiance out of jail. Like, I did a lot of stuff that I felt ashamed about. But I had compassion on myself. I had self-compassion. And now I think that's my superpower. I believe that my clients would tell you that that is my superpower, that I am a restorer of financial dignity. I offer that safe and compassionate place for you to learn, to experiment, and to grow. Maybe you're wondering how self-compassionate you are. If so, I'm actually linking up a free self-compassion quiz for you in the show notes. So I took it for myself, and I am happy to report that I had some pretty good results. I'm not saying I had 100%, but I was pretty pleased with my score. And you know what? That's the thing. We're never going to be perfect. It's really about improvement. And listen, if money shame is a deep-rooted issue for you, I highly recommend purchasing the Money Mind Reset Hypnosis Library. The first hypnosis is called Dissolving Money Shame, a Journey of Self-Forgiveness. Listen to it once a day as you're falling asleep for at least 7 days. The reports that I am getting back from people about this particular hypnosis track are nothing short of amazing. And if you want to know more about hypnosis, go back one episode and listen to Dissolving Money Blocks with Hypnosis. The link is in the show notes for both that podcast episode and for the Money Mind Reset Hypnosis Library. There's also a special listener-only discount when you use the promo code podcast. So here's the thing. You have to stop punishing yourself long enough to give yourself compassion and permission to seek out help with your finances. Whether it's from me or a friend, a family member, or another financial professional, that's how you break the cycle of money shame. Well, my friend, this is where I leave you for today. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please leave us a review. It helps others find the Money is Emotional podcast. And if you're not a subscriber yet, what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified when a new episode drops. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one to sort out both your money and your emotions, please go to christineluken.com/apply, and we'll see if we're a good fit to work together. Until next time, this is Christine Luken reminding you that you're good enough, you're smart enough, and gosh darn it, people love you, including me. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Money is Emotional podcast. To get in touch, visit our website at www.christineluken.com or drop us a line at hello@christineluken.com. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Christine Luken. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing or tax advice. Always seek the advice of your advisor, tax professional, or other qualified financial professional with any questions you may have regarding your personal finances.